What is your biggest personal success and what is your biggest personal failure?
Well, I think that my biggest personal success is to be able to do the things that I wanted to do, that I visualize them and turn them into reality. A fellow by the name of Kurt Manul, who was Mr. Austria. Now you have to imagine when you're like 14 years old, like I was, and 15, and Mr. Austria was like, oh, it's a big star.
Yeah.
He came out to that lake where I grew up. It was like a lake where there was on weekends like 3,000-4,000 people around that lake, lying in the grass and on blankets and then swimming in that lake. And he came out there and he looked like God. And they were working out and they were inviting me to work out with them. So to me, that was kind of the first experience where someone kind of dragged me in and inspired me. And I said to myself, oh my God, can you imagine looking like that? And he, if he wanted it or not, happened to be very good. Because he said to me, he says, well, Arnold, in 5 years, you could look like me. And I was visualizing right away, oh my God, can you believe that if I could look like that? And I'm Mr. Austria?
Yeah.
You know, so that was like major. And I just felt like, this is almost kind of my new dad.
Yeah.
He was 32 years old and he became kind of like a mentor. So I got my real early inspiration that way. And then I went down to the club, to the weightlifting club. I started working out and started really become religious about it. It was like, this was my new life. And I started having visions, very clear visions of being a Mr. Austria. Then there were pictures of the Mr. Europe contest, so I visualized myself being in the Mr. Europe contest and winning. And then I saw pictures of Reg Park, which is a British bodybuilder. So that became kind of my idol. And I saw pictures of him winning Mr. Universe in London. And so that was my new vision. So I started really creating through this guy's a vision. I want to go to America. I want to go and be there and work my way up to become the greatest bodybuilder of all times. But that vision was so vivid, so clear, that I felt like all I had to do now is just follow through with the work. So let me now find out what needs to be done. And so I read about Reg Park. How did he train? He trained like 4 or 5 hours a day. And he did so many sets, so many reps. These are the exercises he did the bench press, the incline press, the curl, the shoulders presses, and the this and that. And I just wrote everything down and I started following his routine. And I was absolutely convinced that I will be another Reg Park. And so that's how I really developed my first rule that I always talk about to success, is you got to have a very clear vision of where you want to go. Because if you don't have that, you're just floating around. And so, you know, I was very fortunate that I created that vision. I was very fortunate that there was not the side kind of things going on. We didn't have a phone in our house. We didn't have a television in our house. At that time, there were no iPhones, there were no iPads, there was no computer. There was just really, you had all the time in the world to think and to really just sit quietly and to just visualize.
I was wondering, what's your earliest childhood memory that you think defines the person you are today? I heard somewhere you mentioned your father made you earn your breakfast. And I was thinking, what does that feel like? What does that mean?
I really don't know exactly what it was that gave me the drive or gave me the ability to visualize my goals and all that. But I think it was a combination of things, of growing up after the Second World War in 1947. I was born, and to grow up with no food, with starvation and famine, and you know, my mother going around what they call hamstering, which means begging at various different farmers for food, so she had food for the children. So all of that, I think, had an impact and a strict upbringing. My father was very strict. You know, we were hit many times and punished for not doing the things the way they thought we should do things. Because of that world, that negative world, I had to kind of create my own world. So I was just always daydreaming of wonderful things. So I developed that art, and he put a smile on my face.
Yeah.
So clearly when I then saw Mr. Austria or Mr. Universe, and I saw these guys and saw photographs of it, and I read about it in the magazines, I created my vision. And I saw in that vision myself being up on that stage. And I saw myself, people screaming around me, and screaming, Arnold, Arnold, and all this crazy stuff. It was all insane, crazy stuff. Stuff that I never shared in those days with anybody, because they would have put me in a mental institution, right? So I just remember that I was sitting in a classroom in school. I was like 13 years old, 14 years old. The teacher would be where you are now, in front of me, teaching. And I would just slowly look off to the side, out the window. I saw these green trees. And then all of a sudden I started seeing things. And I had a smile. It just was wonderful stuff that I saw. And all of a sudden I had a chalk landed on my forehead. So the teacher threw a chalk at me, kind of saying, hey, I'm here. I'm getting paid to teach you, to teach this class of 30. Why are you looking out the window? Now, I couldn't even articulate that what you're teaching here doesn't really blow up my skirt. It's like, it's not like kind of something that I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is what I just saw when I looked out there. And I saw myself on that stage in London at the Mr. Universe contest, and it's things like that. So I think that with me, visualizing became a normal thing. And I never really knew that I had really a very special ability to visualize and to connect the dots, to say to myself, well, if I can see it, then it must be a reality. And I can make it a reality. So for me, the vision became a reality. So it was only then a matter of following through with the work to get there. And this is why in the book, one of the things I talk about is work your ass off. Because every single time when I had a vision about anything, I had to work my ass off. But it was pleasure. See, that is the great thing. When you go to work and you know exactly why you're working, then it becomes fun, a challenge. It's entertaining sometimes.
When you hear about your childhood, it's not easy, it's tough, it's rough, it's harsh. There's so many internal challenges at home, there's external challenges, there's limitations that you're in a country that's obviously just survived a world war. It almost looks like there is no space to have vision.
That's right.
Like someone could argue that, Arnold, how are you having a vision in this space? I think what's really interesting is sometimes we feel helpless because of where we're born, where we're from, our parenting structure, our surroundings. Some people struggle to have a vision because they say, well, how can I have a vision? Look where I am. And then some other people, they can't have a vision because when they see someone like Reg Park or Mr. Austria in your example, what they see is, oh, envy. I wish I had that, oh, why does he have that? Or maybe, I should have that. So I think we live in these two worlds where we either feel helpless or sometimes we feel envious and egotistical about visions. How did you allow yourself, or how did you develop that ability that even though around you, there wasn't that much success, there was more stress, but you saw Mr. Austria and were able to do that? Have you ever figured out what that was compared to everyone else you grew up around?
I just can tell you I was very unhappy. I was unhappy with the reality of what was around me. The tough parents and the lack of food, and others had steaks. We didn't have the money for that. So everywhere I looked, so I think to me, the only way really was, in order to be happy, is to create my own world and to visualize. That's why people sometimes read a lot, because they want to escape into another story, or the day they watch movies to go and to see to escape into another story and all this stuff. For me, that wasn't available, And so this is why I think that I made that kind of the rule number one is, visualize. And I always compare it to that you can have the best airplane in the world with the most advanced pilot. But if he doesn't know where to go, he's just going to fly around until he crashes. And that's what happens to you in life. If you don't know where you want to go or who you want to be, you eventually just float around and you eventually crash. And that's why a lot of people are unhappy. They take drugs, or they drink, or the suicide rates. I think a lot of it has to do because people really don't have as much of a purpose and the mission and the vision and all of the things that drove me from the time I was like 15 years old. It was very clear which direction I want to go. Let's say you're working in some car plant and you do kind of the same work, putting a window into a car over and over, 50 times a day, every day, all year long for 30 years. I mean, it's tough. And so this is why it's so important that we really have a clear vision so that you know where to go, and that wherever it is, if it is to become a great auto mechanic, or if it is to become a great teacher, or a politician, or a high-tech engineer, whatever it is, but have a vision, and then you go after that and you shoot for that, because now every step of the way is going to be great. And this is why I did the book, be useful.
I'm glad that you put it in that order though, because I think for everyone who's listening and watching, a lot of people will say, I do work hard. I'm working my ass off. I'm working my socks off. I'm like doing everything I can. But I think what's really important is that in the book, you start with have a clear vision.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think there are a lot of people who are working really, really hard. And it's almost like if that hard work was channeled toward a clear vision, as you say, then that hard work pays off.
Right.
Because otherwise, a lot of people just working hard, getting stressed, putting on pressure, but there isn't that vision. Have you found, what was the greatest sacrifice you ever made in your life, do you think? And what was the reward that you gained from it? What was the biggest sacrifice?
That is really the question, is it really a sacrifice?
Because you love it.
Exactly. To me, it's also a real question is the word discipline. Because I tell you, I felt many times that I'm not a disciplined person. But people always insist, they say, oh, it must take so much discipline every day to get up, and every day you were in the gym at 7 in the morning and you worked at the 9:30 in the morning, and then you went to college after that, and then you went this and that, and you worked on construction. So I was like looking forward to getting up in the morning and looking forward driving to the gym and working out 2.5 hours, and then going down to the beach and taking a run in the deep sand and getting some cardio work done and all this stuff. I said, I was looking forward to it. You should just pick a goal that you can chase. When you pick a doctor, let's say I want to be a doctor. I want to be a surgeon. A kid says to himself at the age of 15, well, from that point on, he knows all the classes he has to take and all of this stuff. So there's a reason for going to school rather than, oh, my parents told me that I have to go to college, and you just go to fulfill this obligation, but there's no goal.
Yeah.
That's what happens to a majority of kids today. They don't have the goal. And that's why they end up being one of the 78% that are unhappy with their jobs, and they wish they could change jobs, but then it's too late, because now you've created a family and you have to pay for, your rent for the apartment, and you have to put food on the table, you have to provide money for the kids and for your wife and for the family and all this stuff. So it's really tough. So that's why so many people are really always looking for an answer or searching for an answer. How can I improve my life? How can I make it a little bit better and all this stuff? And I always say that I feel sorry for kids today that are spending hours and hours on that iPhone or an iPad or computer, and they don't give themselves that chance to just settle back and to just figure out what do they want to do, or who do they want to be. We are talking about one of the other rules.
Yes.
Is in the book, which is that to shoot for big goals.
Yeah, never think small.
Is just as much energy or as little energy as shooting for a little goal. You know, it's just as much hassle when you have a little goal, like say, if I would say, I want to be Mr. Austria. Well, that's as much working out than working out for Mr. Europe or Mr. Universe. So, I mean, you might as well just continue on and just say, okay, all I have to do now, the difference really is that you have to become a real professional. You have to know how to pose, you have to have the right tan, you have to take the right food supplements, you have to eat the right food, you have to really fine tune, you have to get the definition. It's not just the size of the body. So the higher up you go, the more complicated it gets to win. And but I say to myself, to me, to shoot for the goal of being a world champion, it's just as easy as shooting for a goal of being Mr. Austria, being the Austrian champion. So I just went all out, and not only to win the world championships in bodybuilding, but to go beyond Reg Park, who won at that point 3 Mr. Universe titles, to go beyond that and to say, I want to actually become the greatest bodybuilder of all time, all times.
Did you ever have a plan B?
I never believed in plan B because I felt kind of like one of the rules we have in my book is never listen to the naysayers.
Yeah.
You know, to me, I always felt kind of like every single dream of mine. So people said, this is stupid.
Yeah.
What is the matter with you? That would never happen. I mean, your dream is to go to America. What do you think, they're waiting for you over there? I mean, there are plenty of people over there. They have over 300 million population. They don't need any more. And so that was the kind of saying, you see, you will never make it to America, and they don't need you. So no, impossible. When I said I want to be a world champion in bodybuilding, that was impossible. When I said I want to get into movies, that was impossible. So it was always impossible. So I felt that we can go and defend ourselves from that and just not listen to the naysayers. But if I start having a plan B, then all of a sudden I'm becoming, in a way, a naysayer to myself.
Wow, yeah, true.
So because that means now that I'm saying, well, maybe this isn't working out. And if it's not working out, we should have a plan B. So to me, this is the most dangerous of all of the naysayers, is me saying no, and it's impossible maybe to myself. So therefore, I felt the best way of handling that is not to have a safety net and not to have a plan B. That I'm at risk, and therefore I have to be at all times on the edge and at 10, so I don't fall where I would need a safety net. Never have a plan B, always go all out with my plan and really put 100% of effort into it in order to really achieve it. It's why it's important to have a purpose when you do things, to have a clear vision when you do things, because then you don't have to look at it kind of like I have to be really disciplined to do that, or I have to make certain sacrifices to do that, because then it just drags you into that direction and you just do the work. I've had many movies go in the toilet. I've lost bodybuilding competitions and powerlifting competitions and all that stuff. So I had plenty of failures. It's always important to bring that up because people should know that you never will be able to go through life without failures. Failures make us learn. Failures make you stronger. Pain makes you stronger. So I think all of that is good.